Gentlemen, let us look back at human history because it is littered with men who forgot they were men. And today, you are following in their footsteps, but with far less courage and far more excuses. The lesson is painfully clear. Every disaster, every collapse, every loss of dignity has its roots in men forgetting who they are, surrendering their duty, abandoning their courage, and betraying their people through silence, blindness, weakness, or cowardice. When Adam stood passive as Eve reached for that fruit, understand clearly, it was not her temptation that broke the world. It was his silence, his surrendering of responsibility, his cowardly refusal to stand firm. Adam allowed the vanities of Eve to sway him, and humanity has paid a heavy price ever since. When Samson laid his strength in Delilah's hands, the tragedy of Israel wasn't born in betrayal. It came from his own blindness, his own abandonment of discipline, letting pleasure cloud purpose, allowing weakness to replace strength. Samson willingly gave away his divine power, and Israel suffered humiliation and bondage as a consequence. When David cast hungry eyes on Bathsheba, a nation trembled and fell, not from the beauty of a woman, but because a king forsook his duty, let selfish desires rule him, forgot his strength, and brought devastation to his people. David lusted after Bathsheba, leading to betrayal, murder, and turmoil throughout his kingdom. But it doesn't stop there. It never does. Look at Troy. Was it Helen's fault that Troy burned? No. It was Priam, an old king who opened his gates wide, too weak to tell his spoiled son. No. Too spineless to say, "I will not sacrifice an entire people for your pleasure." Troy fell because a man forgot to be a man. Look at Rome. Nero watched his empire burn not because flames are cruel, but because a coward emperor chose selfishness over service, luxury over leadership, vanity over virtue. Rome burned because a man surrendered his strength to decadence. Look at Tsar Nicholas of Russia, who stood paralyzed as Rasputin manipulated his family. The empire collapsed, not because a mystic deceived them, but because the Tsar was too weak to hold his ground, too spineless to protect his people, too confused to assert himself. Russia fell into darkness because a man forgot his duty. France faced revolution because Louis XVI allowed extravagance and excess to rule his throne. Not because Marie Antoinette enjoyed luxury, but because a weak king lacked the backbone to stand up, lacked the courage to say enough, lacked the discipline to save his nation. Blood ran in the streets because a man abdicated his role. And look at Neville Chamberlain, who shook hands with Hitler, who appeased a tyrant, hoping submission would bring peace. Europe burned, millions perished, not just because Hitler was a monster, but because leaders like Chamberlain refused to confront evil, refused to hold their ground, refused to be men strong enough to say no. If you've made it this far, please support the channel by subscribing and liking. Share the episode with other brothers, and let's change the world one video at a time.